Alright, I wanted to discuss this with you just as something like the unpopular opinion. Just the unpopular thing. I was talking with Mark and Aethelred about something in the old days. Mark doesn't want to completely remove boosts because, well, gun beds. And, well, he said boosts allow gun beds and other types of robots to coexist. The old tier 10 was 100% max CPU gun beds and thruster sticks. I'm not against removing boosts, but I don't want to go back to that. To which we kind of had a large conversation, which I'll give to you right now. Here you go. About what could be done to fix it and what was wrong. And, well, my unpopular opinion was Speed Boost semi-fixed one of the main issues if it was implemented only. Basically, there is the, well, sort of triangle of things where you need a certain amount of armor, certain amount of weapons, certain amount of utility parts, certain amount of movement parts, so on and so on, certain amount of booster parts. The thing is, if you want to spend extra on weapons, it means you get less in armor and all the other things. But, as Gunbet showed us, adding the main weapon count that you should have was like 6 or 8 or so with some extra redundancy, of course. And, well, there wasn't really a penalty to using 15 weapons. You'd still have great amounts of armor and speed. And, well, our opinion on this was, yes, that's true, but tanks showed this in another way, as tanks could not be using the thrusters. Tanks by themselves had nothing from thrusters, and they only needed like 2 tanks and then you'd survive for the entire round with them. Which meant that they had a ton of CPU left over for weapons and armor and utility without having any negative side.
But the CPU was increased for tank tracks partially for that reason, because you could fit so many on there.
That's
you remember
true.
The tank track box we used to see?
Yeah, the when they had more health than cubes and you'd have triangle bots made out of like pyramids of tanks.
The pyramid tank track those, yes.
Yeah.
They were quite hilarious.
I keep saying this, but I believe one of the main issues of weapon spam is the fact that a lot of weapons, like back in the days, comparing the tier 10 to the tier 7 or tier 6 or whatever, you know, whatever, the CPU costs and weights and health, I think the linear line between that was way too low. Like, the similarities between the tier 8 and tier 10 were, well, really close. So you could basically use a ton of them and not be punished that much, but if they had more CPU cost, then they'd be a lot better.
Well, part of the reason, sorry, that's not the right wording. I do have the ability to go and look at all of the stats because I, of course, recorded them for historical purposes. And one thing that I would say would really benefit us in terms of preventing any, spammy gun beds, right? It would be definitely to increase the CPU of these weapons.
Exactly, because
But
the
in a
issue
way,
was that you'd reach functional state way too soon. Like, viable state or
there's
functional state was reached before you had even maxed out your CPU.
there's a part of me that wants to increase the CPU that weapons take up. But I mean, let's take for example mega weapons. The mega weapons back in those days were, yes, very powerful. And one of their drawbacks, of course, was
Their
they
massive
were
CPU
really
cost.
powerful, but they had really
Massive
high
size.
CPU cost to them. So
And
you could
they
go
were
in
heavy
with a
and
robot with 4 mega SMGs on it. You'd be fragile, but you'd be able to put out a lot of damage, especially if you had a medic or two behind.
exactly. But the problem
Um,
was that you could fit like if you compare that to how normal guns should be used, like right now, if you want to make a good rail unit, you have to sacrifice some armor and speed and well actually you want speed and you want rails to fit on as many as possible, which is
well,
really difficult.
when we're talking about getting rid of gun beds outright, it's a bit of a more complex issue than just assessing it with a single number.
Exactly, which
There's
is
multiple
what he
avenues
said.
available for you to deter gun beds from being a thing. You could increase the size of a weapon. You could increase the amount of CPU it takes up. You
Wait.
could probably even go into the realm of having diminishing returns on damage.
Well, I had the thing where
Too many
adding
guns.
more weapons of the same kind would increase the X. Well, they'd have a CPU penalty added on top of their CPU cost, which would increase the more guns you added. So let's say your 10th gun would have, so your second gun would have a CPU penalty of 2 extra, so it'd be, instead of 40 it would be 42, but your 10th gun would have one of 20, which would work, which is kind of a semi version of diminishing returns.
Wait, 20 what?
20 CPU
CPU.
X, so instead of 40 to 42, they become 40 to 60. That's a sort of diminishing returns. I mean, honestly, the issue started really when you had such big parts that could just survive so long. So even when you had low armor due to sacrificing so much, you'd really not be in much trouble otherwise. Like it didn't hurt you as bad as it should have.
But you do remember we used to have. Remember Anti-Gunbrella, right?
Oh, I do. It was horrible.
Well,
Yeah, that's if you think of it, Anti-Gunbrella is the exact example of when survivability is just showing up even though you have no parts. So you're viable with nothing.
That's not what I was.
Well,
going
it does show it though. Like, you'd have legs connected with rods with a rail or such on top, and it would win. Why? Because it was able to output so much damage, even though it was so fragile. But the legs and such had so much health that it didn't matter. You didn't need that extra speed, you could just add more weapons. Sometimes, and you could make the argument saying like, well, I don't want to go back to 1500 CPU max because it's too limiting. But I mean, yes, modules took away a bit of that extra CPU. Like, people really had too much, Gesundheit, really had too much CPU, and modules kind of fixed that by offering an ability for like 300 CPU. to take away some of your health, because it took away a lot of health. But yeah, I think as you said, the root cause of gun bats is just the fact that you have so much CPU to spare, but you're still
That's not
highly
exact-
functional.
There's not much incentive there. There's no penalty.
Yeah, exactly. There's no
using
penalty to
ton of
go.
weapon.
There's no penalty to doing so. So if you even if you go spammy, there's nothing that says like, hey, maybe you shouldn't, because you might.
You are recording this, right?
I am.
All right. Well, is there a section where I get to talk?
I'm sorry.
Yes, I know you're very eager about this. I understand. But it's not something you can change on a whim. It's
Yeah.
something you have to think about. I know that gun beds have been an issue for a very long time. There's multiple avenues you can go about getting rid of gun beds. I think the best way is with a sort of diminishing return system, but it has to be one that won't be frustrating.
But
For example,
wait.
remember during the Respawn and Overclock update, movement parts had diminishing returns too.
Yeah, because they started at a different overclock, so like their overclock would be much lower than some other parts at a different overclock. And
No, how diminishing returns worked was you would receive a, like if you have one thruster,
oh,
you
it's
have,
like that.
That much power. If you have two,
Yeah.
and then that would go all the way up to, I think 14 was the max range before everything after that was like, it wouldn't add practically anything. So you could have 14 thrusters, and that's the maximum total output you can get, upper limit of diminishing returns, before everything afterwards is meaningless. And I kind of like that, because that's what I used for many of my builds
True.
to get a sort of sense of a baseline structure for the movements, how many I wanted to have, and then I would build my structure around that and put my guns around all of that so I could have some really effective robots.
That's true.
One of my best, of course, was one of my most favorite flyers of all time, which is now not so good anymore because of changes, but it was able to fly with its tail shot off.
But may I
And
ask
that
you
was-
something?
Yeah,
What if the lasers and plasmas were like the epic rails? Because I did not really see that much spam in terms of the rails. You'd really have to spread out, like you have to massively use rods, which effectively weakens your structure. You'd have to flatten your armor and spread it out as well. Even insect legs struggled to be armored. Rails in general, because of their higher CPU cost and higher, like their much bigger radius, they weren't as spammy in the tier
For
10.
the entirety of Robocraft's history, rail cannons have always been a gun that is not really one that you can spam unless you're clever.
Exactly, but what if the other weapons would benefit from that as well? But then,
it would.
But then you'd still have tank tracks, which I discussed earlier, is the fact that tank tracks do not benefit from thrusters without speed boost. Which leaves them, compared to most of the other bots, in a spot where they have much more leftover CPU, without sacrificing viability.
Well, actually, I'm sure they could modify the systems to
Also include a speed boost within the thrusters.
Well, no, I mean, like, if you have thrusters on your robot, it would be able to boost the speed of your robot, you know.
Yeah, that's true. And that's why I said speed boost. Although weird and different, it has helped solve the issues with tank tracks and mechs, because instead of them spamming more armor and more guns compared to whereas hovers would spam for more speed and planes would also spam for more speed, they now too want that extra speed. And they
Well, yeah,
do get
because
something from
in the
it.
battlefield, speed is kind of everything.
So I'd say speed boost should maybe be toned down a bit, but is definitely something that could be considered worth keeping, because it is actually helping to solve the whole too much CPU issue.
Now, I, I wouldn't mind speed boost if it had a diminishing returns
That's true.
that
I
was
want that
similar
too.
to what existed during the overclock update.
I definitely
Like,
want that too.
I mean, I don't want to go fight against a plane
That you can't
that's
hit.
traveling at Mach 3
Yeah,
at
that's
like
basically drones at
thousands
the
of miles
moment.
per hour. Sure, I mean, I can hit it because I'm a fairly good rail player, but I don't want to be seeing those too often, you know?
Yeah, but that same thing could be said for damage boost and health boost in general.
Well, yeah,
It's not
I
fun to
don't
play
like
against a tank that
the
can't be killed or a drone that can't be hit but can two-shot you, basically.
I don't like the damage boosts or health boost systems that much either, because really there's
But
sure it's
I
kind
would
of a
say
high risk,
speed
high reward.
boosts are still a logical thing. Like they
See,
would benefit. They would benefit and they would be logically boosters. So, but yeah, you're right. The health boost and damage boost, it just doesn't make sense when there's already armor and energy and weapons for that.
personally, I think that a robot's overall structure should determine how
It's
effective it is in combat.
it is
Instead
indeed.
of instead of just the boosts, how you build your robot and how it's all fit together. Like one of the reasons why I liked the whole aspect of Triforcing so much is because you could fortify the structure of your robot by using those parts
But you'd
to then,
sacrifice the
like,
entire integrity.
well, like, yeah, you could build like a skeleton for the inside of your robot,
Yeah,
and then
you
put
could give
armor
up
as a
more
scheme
CPU
around that, and then
y-
put your weapons and your moving parts on it so that you stay together in the right way
and
that you
that's
want to.
also how it should have been, but instead, yeah, you know what happened.
What do you mean?
As in the fact that they just, well,
Well, I mean, we saw that Tesseract happened.
yeah, exactly
because,
what I was talking about. We saw what
but the
happens when
reason
it's done
why
too much.
is because the damage model at the time worked differently than it does today. Today we have rail cannons with 3-layer penetration.
Yeah,
We
we have
have flank
piercing to
cannons
kind of
with
stop that.
we've got missile launchers and protoseekers. We have
So,
viable options for those anti-triforcing,
but
sort of
you
weapons.
would say that 2000 CPU is still something we should keep in the game as kind of the end range, or should you say like we should stick to 1500 CPU again with the pilot seat that we have designed for our game with like module effects, for example?
Um, uh, about the pilot seats and the abilities being attached to a pilot seat sort of mechanic. When I first read the future of Robocraft, all those that oh, I'll just silence that for now. Okay. So,
Future
the future of Robocraft, that was talking about, you know, the Respawn and Overclock update, the future of all of that.
Yeah.
It was talking about the supercomputer units, Cray, Tian, and Gene. And it's briefly explained, you know, what their abilities could be, and I was like thinking, hey, that's really cool. Different interchangeable pilots that you could put in there to have your robot do something specific. I thought that would be pretty neat, and that obviously changed over time and turned into modules, which is what we have now. Oh, hold on a minute. You know what? Okay.
Oh god.
Okay.
Welcome back.
Where was I? I was talking about supercomputers.
Yes.
Okay.
Talking about the fact that Cray and Tiana and Gene added something special. This is awkward.
Well, when I was reading through those articles, I was thinking of, obviously, I was thinking of robots that I would make with those things, because I always have different robot types on the mind.
You'd have bots that could take it, that could use the advantage of the module effect to counter their weakness.
Yeah, in a way. Like, I'd imagine that at the time, the fragile rail walkers would put Tianhe on their robot so that they see a plasma bomber coming to destroy them. They could, like, fortify themselves or something with a shield or an armor fortification thing going on. So that they could, you know, defend themselves a little bit more from the incoming death that was approaching them.
Yeah.
And I think that would be much cooler to have like active modules and powers like that instead of boost systems that are kind of not really easy to predict.
That's true.
Like, one of the reasons why I like the overclock system so much was that whenever someone overclocked, you would have, you know, visual, audio, and written indication as to how powerful they were. Like, oh, that person's overclock level 15. I better be careful about picking a fight with them, otherwise I might end up on the losing side, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like back in the day, you'd have like a copter with a Mega SMG on it, and it'd be maybe overclock level 12 or something, and let's say you're overclock level 10, you'd be like, I might want to get another ally with me to take that thing down. Or you just be really cheeky and sneak up on them.
That's true. But on your whole opinion about the situation, I'm not sure if I got a reply. Someone saying just add weapon limits, as in weapon amount limits, which I said were unfair. If you want to challenge yourself to a glass cannon, you should be faced with weaker armor, but we didn't because the CPU balancing wasn't right. He said, I don't understand how it would be unfair. Just make weapon limits for each weapon type, like in the old days.
Well, back in the day, we sort of did have weapon limits, because you could only ever have, like, if you had plasma, you could only ever have 6 shots
6 active, and just with rails. Yeah, you're right.
With rails, you can only have 6 shots, and with SMG, you can only have 6 for the maximum fire rate, stuff like that.
And that worked.
That worked out pretty well. But I think probably something else should have been...
I think that doesn't work with 2000 CPU though.
Well, yeah, quite simply because we have too much CPU to work with in terms of how many guns you can fit onto a robot.
And
Like,
I'd honestly gladly revert. Like, if they turn modules into the 1 by 3 by 2 fully rotatable pilot seat with an SCU, it would mean that you'd basically not need that extra CPU to do the whole module effect, but instead we could bring the CPU back down to 1500, and we could then have that 6 weapons max active again, and then we'd erase the entire, well, gunbed issue, just entirely gone. But again, the other solution to it would of course be diminishing returns on CPU cost for weapons. But still, I'd love to see our pilot seat within this game.
I would definitely like to see a pilot seat return, but in order for that, you'd have to have because part of what made pilot seats, they had their advantages and disadvantages. The disadvantage was that every robot had a definite weakness. So if you found the enemy's pilot seat, you knew where it was, you could kill them.
Still, the pilot seat was horribly designed. In fact, it only had 2 points on the bottom.
Well, yeah. I mean, the pilot seat would have functioned much better if it had, like, points on all sides of it.
Exactly.
Because you could fortify that much better than you could with just the old 2 points or even the old 5.
And I would gladly take just this seat in the game, but in general.
But
Go ahead.
Something that the pilot seat had that was an advantage was if someone made a gun bed or a really like lock spammy, really tanky thing that was hard to kill, if you found their pilot seat, you could kill them faster.
True. But overall, in general, in the way that we're currently quote-unquote going, because it's gonna probably take another year before they have recreated everything, what do you think of the complete just direction that we're taking? As in, Mark wanting the tiers and then saying like, I'll maybe do them otherwise later because the current matchmaking is a joke anyways. But just what in general would you like to see different from the current plan? I would say the pilot seat, SCU, and max CPU. But again, I could be wrong in saying that we could definitely have 2000 CPU if we just add something else to increase the usage of CPU. For example, just have an even bigger set of weapons that we could put on, kind of like how we had TX back in the 1500 era. But something instead for the whole 2000. So for jammers, but just something. I'd like to see that. But what about you? Oh look, it's someone else.
Oh, someone else is in there.
It's Vinny. Hi, Vinny. He's quiet. Oh god, my mouse is stuck.
You know, now that you bring up the old radar, I'm suddenly reminded of, you know, all the old parts that we have that did take up that extra CPU.
But they weren't useful.
Well, I mean,
they weren't needed in the same way as I said, that you could be viable enough without them and not face any direct consequences as to not using enough or any of them.
But when you were spotted on the radar system by the radar itself, you'd be able to see them through, you know, terrain, right? You see their name.
Kinda. still prefer the current spotting system because it actually helps your team coordinate.
Well, yes, I know. That's sort of the whole reason why I was implementing it.
We should
But
probably
I'm
keep
just
this recording a bit short. It's currently already at 30 minutes.
30 minutes.
Yeah,
Good
we've
lord.
already been talking for 30 minutes. Yeah, I'm not saying you have to close right now, just so you know.
Well, really, I haven't really planned anything out yet.
Exactly.
Just
I
kind of
don't do my
talking.
scripts or planning anything either.
Well, yeah, but I want to do it right, you know, because I want to see this game succeed.
Well, we're still making our own game, and if we're going to
Well,
have these issues, we might as well discuss them right away.
well, yeah, but
You're thinking that we're not going to face such issues because we're more cautious in using the CU system?
no, I'm sure we're most likely going to have the same issues that they
I
do.
know.
But the one thing that I'm not confident about is our organization. We don't really have any structure to speak of with our game, you know that.
That's true.
I mean, I'd certainly like to make some, but I don't always have time.
Eh. Honestly, I think Robocraft still has greatness within it, but it's lacking.
It's a very hard balance to strike, but
especially
once
with
you get
this
it
many
right,
weapons or movement parts. Of all the movement parts, which one would you be most? Which one would you like to see change the most?
Changed in what way?
As in how we have so many small mech legs, or how the small mech leg is not even viable in any form, or
That's not necessarily true. Small things are still
small
viable.
insect leg is, for example, viable because it's much better to build with, but the small sprinter leg, I don't think it has half the health of the normal sprinter leg and barely any hitbox change. Even the smallest mech leg, which has a much smaller hitbox,
I think that when it comes to deciding the health of parts, it should be in some way related to how big they are.
Well,
and how easy they are to hit.
Honestly, let's just say this. The smallest mech leg has 50 CPU cost, almost 70k health, and you know, hitbox and almost same speed. While the sprinter leg is also 50 CPU with 50k health, but a bigger hitbox. So basically, what I'm saying is there's imbalance.
But it does have the ability to long jump,
which is basically useless now that they stop.
Well, originally from the beginning they were intended to stop. The reason why they didn't was because of a slight oversight in the design.
It didn't matter because sprinters were still weak, and even though they could double jump on hills, it took skill, and they weren't outmatching hovers or mechs. Mechs were more than viable still.
Well, yeah, that's because you want to have them in a spot where they're both a viable option.
But now
you
they're
don't
both
want
the same.
one to overtake the other.
Now they're literally the same. Yeah, they're just the same.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Have you been playing the game recently?
What do you mean?
Like, when's the last time you hopped onto Robocraft and played it for a few hours over a solid month?
Right now, and well, not really played anything. I think 2 days ago I played a few matches on my laptop while working on my game because I was testing out some stuff for the physics. And I played some Procilio as well then. Oh, we have another person again. It's Finny again. Oh god. Finny, we're recording.
16. Have you been getting a problem where Discord will just cause blue screen of deaths?
Nah, what do you mean?
Whenever I join a voice, like, it's happened 3 times today already, Discord will just cause my computer to buzzard.
I think that's just you.
The fucking Discord, man.
We were talking about...
getting demonetized.
I don't do it at all. I don't do ads and shit, I don't give a fuck. We were talking about how the whole boost system and all that kind of stuff was working, and the fact that overly placing weapons and such is still going to be an issue if you don't have some kind of CPU based redundancy or just exponentially increasing penalty on top of their required cost and rebalances towards their CPU costs to facilitate for the fact that we have 2000 CPU and are more than viable with just putting just 500 in blocks, and you can already do the rest in just weapons and speed boost, and you'd still not die to anything. That's basically everything summed up.
You know what my problem has been for quite a while with Robocraft?
Go
They
ahead.
took the in-game economy of RP and they completely replaced it with a completely random-based system.
You do realize that's being fixed, right?
I know that's being fixed, but like, it just disgusts me that they did that anyway. How you just completely rip out your in-game economy in favor of loot boxes. Why would you?
And then when they finally do make the console version, they plan to remove crates right away. So...
I mean, I know it's why. It's because there's controversy, and now they're like, oh no, we don't want to be associated with controversy.
Belgium
We're
and the
removing
Netherlands
crates
are
now."
already banning it.
Exactly.
Belgium has already banned it.
You see, that's the thing with free time. They only ever take action when they're in hot water. Otherwise, they just sit on their asses all day long doing nothing.
I mean, this video is going on Reddit, so I mean, I wouldn't roast them too much, even though I'd love to.
I mean, I feel bad being a
Well,
part
it's
of this
true.
video now, because I don't want to be rude.
Well, they deserve it in
Did
some
you
way.
see the player count? If you go onto Steam charts,
I've seen
The
the player.
exact-
I've been watching it for months.
the
know, it's
exact
bad.
time that Epic Loot came out, the player count plummeted.
I did a complete analysis in the off-topic section of Robocraft, looking at the Steam charts, talking
You
about
can't
it
make
as
it
a
up.
recruit.
Like, you go over the exact day where Epic Loot came out, the player numbers spike, obviously, because it's an update, and then it goes all the way back down, far before where it was before.
I know
And
that.
They just
No.
completely ignored it. And they
I-
just say, oh, it's fine, we'll just keep loot crates for now.
Yeah, that they said that, and we know, and they kind of want to fix it, but probably only because they're in deep shit, and only now have realized that because their Robocraft Royale got fucking nuked.
things.
I don't think this is the right way to combat the issue.
Yeah, I don't think it either. I mean, sure we can be salty about this shit, but come on, let's at least make some ideas that could help the gamers.
I'm coming up with that. I'm glad they're making progress. I'm happy with that. It's just it's
Yeah, we're all salty.
too little too soon. I mean,
Too little,
late.
too
I mean.
late.
What am I saying? Anyway,
Most players are permanently
I'm-
lost.
concerned about tiers.
What do you mean?
What exactly are they doing? Like,
They're doing
what?
CPU caps.
Right. And how's that going to stop people who?
They
I have
also,
a robot.
They also have it
Each
that
C-
certain weapons, such as legendaries
Each
and
tier
epics,
will have its own set of limits,
a
so
legendary and
that
epic weapons
robots
won't work
aren't too
into
powerful.
So what's gonna stop me from taking my 100 CPU Railbot into
There's
low
no
tier
damage
matches?
boost anymore.
Oh,
Actually, that's going to stay, but they're thinking
No.
about putting a cap on it.
No. They've replied to that as well. They want to remove it, especially because it serves no use other than ruining
that's
tier 1.
not.
Health boost too. I mean, health boost in general, it was a good thing because it finally incentivized people to build more and not be sacrificed for using big parts. But it just did so much more harm than it did any good.
Yeah, because then you just get these flying bricks, and it's just, what's the point?
More like point holder.
I mean, I did like health boost, I'll admit, because I like just making a 2000 CPU behemoth and just sitting on points, but the meta has gotten quite stale from that.
Yeah, you mean like the hover bricks with a few SMGs just wrapped around it, and then they'd be invincible?
Yeah, those things.
Because
Yeah.
their momentum wasn't being limited as in the way that it was to you. As in they'd still have decent speed and offensive capabilities, even though you'd have the same health boost as
I
your
think
tank.
hovers carry way too much.
God, that's, oh my god, the hover carry mass is just gone. It's a joke. It's literally
I
a
can
literal
pick
joke.
up my 200-ton Megabot with a single hover blade.
Because it's a literal joke. Weight should always matter with movement parts that are faster than others. If they're faster, they're not supposed to carry as
Hey.
much.
Thing is, if you have a hover blade in real life, like say on a drone, the amount of weight that it can carry is directly proportional to the amount of thrust it outputs. The tier 1 hover blades, in my opinion, there shouldn't really be a carry mass,
But it's
strictly
future.
speaking, but rather just a thrust value for each hover blade. If the thrust cannot counteract the force of gravity, obviously basic physics, your robot doesn't fly. Simple as. No ifs, no buts. Your robot does not
So
fucking
you're
fly.
saying that instead of it being slower, it just doesn't fly at all.
Exactly, because you shouldn't be able to lift up these huge high health bricks with a couple of tiny little tier 1 hoverblades. Why do you think these huge hurricane hoverblades are in the game? They're supposed to be used on heavy bots, but nobody uses them because you can use the tiny little tier 1 hoverblade and it does exactly the same job.
And that's the issue.
And it's not supposed to. The tier 1 hoverblades are supposed to be for extremely lightweight robots, not huge sky tanks. They're not supposed to be able to lift that much.
I know. It's a laughable issue at this point.
So it's not just, oh, add tiers and it'll be fixed. No, everything needs to be reworked. Literally every single corner of this game needs to be reworked.
For
Starting with
example, the
hoverblades.
thrusters. I mean, the
Oh,
thrusters.
don't even get me started with thrusters.
Add one thruster to bot. Bot suddenly flies to space, even though it weighs 2,000 tons.
Not even that, but
Oh, you mean the drones?
no. In fact,
what?
I'm not even that bothered by drones. What I'm bothered with is the whole how they make everything so complicated in Robocraft. What's wrong with just having thrusters?
Well,
Output thrust.
as
Why
I
can't-
s- as
because
I
they
said
used to.
earlier. Okay,
Thrusters
let
used
me
to be
explain
very
this.
simple.
Let me explain this. There is a thing called tanks. Tanks are not affected by thrusters, which means that tanks do not need the tanks also only need like 2 of them and they'd survive the entire match. This means that in the sort of triangle/square of movement, utility, weapons and armor, they eliminate 2 out of 4 sources of CPU usage, which means that left over is weapons and armor. And guess what tank tracks spam the most? Exactly. My point being is that thrusters with speed boost fixed the issue that we had there. Because now, finally, even such parts have reasons to use. They have reasons to use these thrusters and use some of their CPU up instead of just adding 20 SMGs, 20 epic tier SMGs. Because, yeah, and that's also an issue. Sure, slow bots were still viable because they had so many weapons, but they should also be able to do it differently rather than just being a straight up gun bet by default.
One thing I also think, I think
carry mess on wheels. They are
right. That is a
tracks.
topic I have been thinking about for a long time, and I honestly think Robocraft should go down to the bare basics. Wheels have a torque value like they used to. So, if your robot is heavy, say your robot weighs a couple of tons and your wheels have a tiny amount of torque, you cannot drive up hills. You can go roll down hills, but you can't drive up them simply because your wheels aren't powerful enough. You need to have more powerful wheels to go up steeper inclines. That is how I think it should be.
Finny, you want movement parts to not be able to do everything as they currently do.
Exactly. I want movement parts that actually work. Why do you think we don't just use one movement part for everything in real life? It's because things in real life, reality, they have trade-offs. In Robocraft, they do not. Nothing has a trade-off. Everything is uniform in this game, which is a problem. It makes parts obsolete.
Well, I mean, you could argue that, but I think that's more of an issue of saying like, hey, let's have two nearly identical leg movement types. Because
that's another thing. What's the point of sprinter legs when mech legs are the exact same thing?
That's why we're adding sprinter capabilities such as slow leaping into the mech legs into our game, and insect legs, their variant, just like tank tracks and wheels. Insect legs will get a leap as well, but it will be more powerful because they're lighter and can be, well, they can jump better.
We're going in.
My issue with...
What's wrong, Seth? I think he's dead.
My issue with insect legs is they don't really...
Dead. I'm just... I'm a bit discouraged now.
Oh, don't worry.
What's the matter?
But Finny, do continue.
Insect legs don't really do what they're supposed to good enough. Insect legs are supposed to be mech legs, but they can go on any kind of terrain. And they don't really do that, do they?
They even walk on the air at the moment.
Exactly, it's like, you try walking up, you'd expect insect legs to be these like spider legs that can go up any surface, you can climb upside down, left, right, everywhere. But if you try doing that in-game right now,
your
you'll
left
flip
leg hit the wall sooner than your right leg. Oh yeah, it's flipped up.
Exactly, it's like, no, that's not, that is why people don't use insect legs. They don't do what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to be these all-terrain things that hook onto everything, and they don't do that, they just fall off.
They're supposed to be all-terrain, but instead, as their trade-off, they're weaker.
That's the thing. People would use insect legs if they actually fulfilled their niche, I guess you could say. But they don't, so people don't use them.
And I mean,
and you're not going to fix it by buffing their speed or buffing their health. No, you actually need to fix them.
Vinny, the same could be said for sprinters, whereas mine
the same applies to everything.
Mine uses hovers to bypass the sprint stop, because without it, they're basically nothing. And without backup hovers,
why did they even add that?
Let me just say, sprinters without backup hovers or without any kind of escape bot are the most useless type of bot. Even pure wheels or pure insect legs or pure, well, skis, that's a joke. Those are more viable than pure sprinters, because pure sprinters, two plasma hits, maybe even one, and both legs are gone and then you can't move anymore. Honestly, as I said, sprinter legs probably should not have even been added, because back when we only had mech legs, they were perfectly viable even with our low speed. People would use them because they offered tank capability. Sure, big hitbox, but they were slow and behemoths. They were the
Jesus
offense
Christ.
class.
Someone did an at everyone at Chifuk Studios, now it's going absolutely crazy.
Oh,
And
great.
I'm gonna stay out of that. There's like 50 people in the voice channel right now. Also, this thing is always just is one of those things where, like, I know it doesn't matter at all, but it still bugs me. Why are plantigrade legs faster and have less carry mass?
Oh yeah, that issue again.
Plantigrade has higher carry mass and slower speed. So why are the sprinter legs freaking... Why? What? This makes zero sense. And anatomy just doesn't work in this game.
I think this game doesn't even work in this game.
No, it doesn't.
Oh, let me just
But
find
usually-
this.
The heavy mech legs with a high carry mass are the ones that, if you were to actually build a robot, like actually, those would be the ones that carry less and move faster.
Oh, did
so-
you want to know something funny?
Yeah.
The smallest hoverblade can carry 3 times as much as the smallest wing.
Oh, another thing. I don't know if everyone will agree with me, but you know these, right, a recent meta has arisen and everyone's seen it. You put 50 odd thruster cheetahs on a bot and it goes into warp drive mode.
Oh,
And
and
you
you
can't
put
hit it.
Teslas on it, and then it becomes impossible to
Well,
fight
not even
against.
that, but no, you just put a Lommel on it and you just fly around the map at 1,000 miles an hour, and not even rails can hit you. You outrun rail shots.
Oh, that
You have to
one.
aim like 10-15 degrees in front of the craft in order to actually track it properly with a railgun.
Yeah, and that's why many people are saying that Speed Boost definitely needs a fucking cap.
Yes, that. And I personally think that if I were to do things, what I would do is I would make thrusters more like wheels, where they actually did this to rotor blades a while back. They
Oh.
gave rotors higher CPU, higher health, basically condense the part so that you don't need to use as many to get the same benefit.
Yeah,
That would mean that actual realistic planes that only have like 4 jet engines would actually work because you only need 4 jet engines. But right now, one thruster gives like nothing and it's only 18 CPU. No, it should be at least
So what you're
twice, 3
saying
times
is
that.
you want thrusters to basically be like propellers, where you only need a few of
Yes,
them. Well, that
exactly.
that could work, but honestly, I think
also-
they're a good way to just span CPU.
With the addition of speed boost, or rather just the tweaks they've been doing to it, I don't know, I've not been keeping track. Propellers have kind of become redundant nowadays.
Yeah,
Propellers need to be much stronger.
I think
Thrusters need to be condensed, so there's actually a proper...
Okay.
You don't have to use 100 of them to get a noticeable difference.
Vinny, I think it's a very common issue, because basically mech legs have become the better sprinter legs with nearly the same speed.
It's power creep.
Wheels have
It's
become
power
the better
creep.
tank tracks, because wheels don't have carry mass and they have a higher speed than tank tracks, so you can spam it as much with the smaller ones because health boost is a thing. And thrusters are basically the same as propellers because they can be spammed more for the same CPU and probably give... let me count that. Yeah, they give much more speed boost if spammed for the same amount of CPU.
Exactly. Which is why propellers aren't that useful. Propellers are... Let me just do the math real quick. Calculator.
They are
One
they are
thruster is 18...
Yeah, 18. You can do it right away. 5 times 5% versus 1 times 13%. Yeah. that speed thrusters offer double the speed boost for the same literally for lower CPU. So yeah, I think propellers and sprinter legs, honestly, I love them, but they should probably just go. I think insect ones are the ones that deserve the leap.
Yeah, and also, I know I'm being really nitpicky, but can we please swap around mech and sprinter legs? I know this is really nitpicky of me, but like, it makes no sense.
I know.
Why do they have a higher carry mass in that, like, what do you call it, joint
because
formation?
Because they don't have muscles.
Rocky, they have motors. Motors have torque.
Well, they have more motors than the sprinter.
Robot legs work identically to human legs. If you arrange them in a certain way, the motor will be able to carry less because motors have torque just like muscles do.
In that way, by your logic, you could say that the propeller, that the rotor blades should offer more thrust than the propeller blades, because they're bigger and have better engines.
What?
I don't know. I'm just being weird.
Yes, you are being Rocky. Have you actually looked at a rotor blade?
Yeah, they have a smaller engine than the.
The rotor blades don't even have an engine.
I like the engine of the propeller, but I really wish it would have.
The
side
propeller
connection.
has a motor in it. In fact, it has a huge motor. The 3x whatever motor in it. The propeller doesn't have a motor. It has the, what do you call it? I
There's
forgot.
this very important aspect.
I don't know
of
helicopter
design
anatomy,
called
but
suspension of disbelief.
why don't rotors have motors on them? Propellers do. Why don't rotors? They just have a little cube that you stick on, and it just magically spins.
And people still don't understand that you need to use all sides of that fucking cube, even though it's the easiest
Why
thing in
did
the
they
world.
introduce? All right, this is another thing: is the lack of uniformity with mounts. SMGs, nanos, anything that was done before the Epic Loot update has a pad mount, and then halfway through they started putting things on cubes. Now, what I don't get, okay, I'd be fine with that if they put everything else on cubes, but they didn't. So now we have half the weapons are like this, half the weapons are like that. It's stupid.
Two of the weapons
Why
are mega,
is everything
mega SMG
different?
and mega plasma.
Can we just...
Uniform.
Yeah, that's another thing that annoys me. Why are Mega SMG and Mega Plasma the only Mega weapons that actually share a weapon mount? Why can't everything else be like that?
Because...
Or why don't... Since it seems to be that they are favoring the Impaler's mount, which I'm okay with. I actually really... In fact, I'd say the Impaler's mount is my favorite mount.
They're only going with that mount from now on.
Why don't they replace everything else? They just leave parts to become obsolete. They don't just give every legendary weapon the same mount so that you can actually swap them around like you can with every other part.
I think, just like you have said, and kind of what Seth has intended, this game needs much more than just a rework.
It needs a complete fucking overhaul. That's what it needs. Everything. Absolutely everything. Hover blades, sprinter legs, insect legs, gun mounts, everything.
And is that your final say on the ending of the video? That you're saying...
Oh, I forgot. Well, yes.
Bloody hell, I haven't had a word for like 10 minutes.
You want to say something?
Sorry. Say something.
I'm frustrated at where this has gone, but I agree that Robocraft does need an overhaul. But I don't want to rush it. I want to take it slow.
God,
so
no. No, we don't want a fucking Epic Loot 2.0, no.
No, we don't want them. We don't want them to jump
This
in
needs
first.
to be done in stages.
That's not what I mean.
I know that's not what you mean. I understand where you're going. We need to be cautious with this.
Oh, wanna know something else? Look at the previews of all the weapons. Some have an octagon point, some have a square point with an octagon on it. Some, for example the plasmas, have a round point. Some have a thick octagon.
Wait, what are we talking about now?
And some have a square, such as the Nano Constructor.
What have we been talking about?
Everything.
No, like, what part of the part are you referring to?
Everything has a different mounting point.
Oh, we're talking about mounting points?
No, I was just getting distracted by that again. Seth, you wanted to say something very important.
At this point, it would require a completely separate video with someone feeding me questions so that I can answer them.
I could do that. I might do that. But you need to be a bit more prepared. I mean, I go into everything I do unscripted and it's worked out great. But yeah. Should I just...
And part of the reason why I haven't been talking so much is because you kept interrupting me.
Sorry.
Sorry.
We're kind of like that.
I think I should just end the video here. We've talked about a lot and we've agreed on quite a lot. And who knows, maybe for some reason FreeGem will watch it. Yeah, that's a funny joke, isn't it?
Well, I don't.
That's
think
like saying
they'll
that
take
Valve listens to your
kindly
emails.
your insults. I certainly don't.
Yes, we know that it's at this point they deserve some of the insults, but it doesn't. It has no point in just keep throwing insults.
They're turning into Valve, I'm telling you.
Nah.
I bet they're gonna make a card game of Robocraft. Honestly, seeing as they tried a battle royale, I wouldn't even be surprised if they did.
Oh my god. I think Seth doesn't even want to answer that. Seth, even though we make jokes of Robocraft, it still has a good place in our heart.
I don't want to leave Robocraft. Why do you think I still play it? Robocraft always has and always will be my favorite game. But it's just there's so much to fix that.
Yeah.
This game is in beta. I don't care what you say, or what the Steam page says. It's in beta. It is nowhere near release.
Oh, we're in full release now, so that means no more massive reworks. Let's redo the entire game.
Robocraft's
Guys.
release has got to be one of the most rushed releases I've ever seen.
It took 5 years though. How is this rushed?
Guys,
It's just, it went straight from being in the middle of beta to being released, is what I mean. Anyway,
Okay,
yes,
okay, let's be quiet for a moment. Seth?
is the video over yet?
No.
Uh,
Do you want it to be?
Well, it's gone to a place where I didn't want it to go. I don't want to keep bashing them because they've heard this all before, you know? I want something new.
well, why don't you say something?
Because, I mean, we've certainly gone over our time limit, and time is valuable.
Yeah, that's why they took 5 years.
God.
You can't stop us.
Alright,
It's
I'm
kind
going
of,
to take a break from this and
It's kind of like just they took 2 years and only now did a thing to change it. You can't take that seriously, no matter how much you love that game. They just set it up for themselves, and everyone knows it.
Robocraft is going to become the new episode 3 joke.
to be honest, I don't really want to be in this video anymore.
Oh, come on, Zeffy.
There's
Nothing wrong
okay,
with some
there's a
innocent
right
humor.
way to do.
And we agree to that. We don't want to keep bashing them. We actually want this game to be fixed.
Hey, Zeffy, if it makes you feel any better, I don't wish any ill on FreeJam. I'm just disappointed. I don't hate them, though. In fact, if anything, I want them to improve, so
Yeah,
that
we-
this game is
It's
actually
all
fun to
about
play again.
presentation.
Eh,
And I've given my input. I've given them plenty of ideas.
yeah, I think we have at least made our points on boosts, on tears, on
Mhm.
and
On
on parts,
Hoverblades?
on
Carry mats?
hoverblades, Oh,
Can we
and
talk?
can we just
Thrust?
talk about this? The
Yes.
CRF needs to go.
It needs to go.
It needs to go.
It needs to go.
Sephi,
No comment.
Sephi,
Undecided.
Sephi,
Remember when everyone had their own bot?
Sephi,
Those were the days. Those were the days.
Seth. Seth, you have an opinion about this, and you know it. You might be able to mute yourself, but I'm gonna be honest here. You remember when everyone had unique bots, and you know that the CRF has done more harm than good.
Everyone had unique bots. Alright, I remember that. I was
This is
there
why I
for
never
it.
sell my bots.
CRF has brought more meta into this game than anything has ever before.
I understand. It was originally intended to be something
Ostriches.
for people to, upload their creations and share with the world. And
Hey, I just broke the
unfortunately,
game by making it something that took 5 hours, that took 50 hours to redesign and
we're
perfect.
going to
Here,
have to
let's
make
give it to
another
everyone in the
video.
world.
I'm out of this one.
Aww. Rip. Press F.
I mean, I kinda shouldn't have said that last one.
Well,
Yeah, he has mixed opinions about that. And I
why?
like, because
What
the
does he-
CRF did bring some good to the game.
I'll admit, I am kind of torn on this as well. What I personally would prefer is the ability to just trade robots with other people, at least just blueprints or something.
Trading card game.
Fuck off. Basically, just. Do you remember that? What is it called? Robocraft Garage?
How much
Something
ref
like
is
that.
the spot worth?
You remember
I'll
Robocraft
give
Garage?
you 2 hats for it.
Okay.
Robocraft Garage is still a thing.
Well, yeah, I know, but nobody uses it because there's a CRF now.
Robocraft Garage was a good thing.
It was. And, well, I know people
I
still
think
use it, but what I mean
CRF
it's
should more
obsolete
have-
now.
I think CRF should have been a show off and learn from it, rather than
Exactly.
here's a bot for you to use so you don't have to learn the game.
Fucking exactly. Well, hey, if there's one thing to be happy about is that if you buy a bot of the CRF, that bay is cursed. You cannot resell it. That is one good thing.
I know, but
and I'm happy
honestly,
they
I
did
think
that.
CRF should more have been a show-off thing, so you could learn from it. So you could just see how it kind of works, and how it was designed, and not be this where you could just buy the latest meta and.
I think they should make it so, like, when you buy that bay, it's isolated from your inventory. You don't actually own the parts in that bay. It's instead just you modify that. It's a virtual robot, I guess you could say. You get where I'm going here?
So you're saying it's kind of like the rent system, but
Yeah. So you can modify the robot, but you don't actually own it, and you don't own any of the parts on it. It's more of just a,
Yeah, but then you could keep it forever and just stick with it and play with it.
Yeah, what I mean is, it should be
What
more
if it
just.
was locked to test mode only or to AI mode only?
I guess that could also work.
So you could test it that way. You could edit it. You could test it. You could.
I'm
learn
honestly
from
not sure. I don't know how to go around this problem. I'm mainly just focusing on the actual mechanics of the game, like, torque, thrust, all that.
I think CRF did do one thing good. It showed off which balance issues were a thing.
Oh yes. Oh.
It indicated balance issues much sooner than previous.
You want to know what the new meta is? Go onto the CRF on the front page. There is your problem.
So it did do something good.
Sees a box with like 50 thrusters. We got
Any
a problem.
comment on this, Saf? Saf?
Zeffy.
What?
Do you have any comment on the fact that the CRF is good for showcasing what the balance problems are?
There's too much to cover to do it all in one shot.
Yeah, I'll give you another 10 minutes or so. I mean,
Well,
people
just
are going
take
to
it in
keep
parts.
watching this
It's-
video anyway.
We don't have to tackle all of it, just give a summary.
Just give it a nice pat and rub.
I prefer to have plans in the games. Alright.
Did you speak a bit up?
Improvise.
Come on.
Oh.
You have years of experience.
I have years of experience. I've been playing this game for
So?
such a long time.
So, tell us. What is wrong and should be adjusted from the CRF? Because we clearly know that it just is a copy-paste machine right now for the latest meta.
Well, I think that the CRF should be the rules of what you can do with a CRF robot should be different.
Well, we had that quest thing, and as I said, in my original one, I did still plan to add a CRF to my game. I said that CRF bots can't be used for quests, and will gain less experience.
Quests?
Oh yeah,
Well, I mean, yeah, but we already have, we already have systems in place
you
to
mean,
sort of make them.
yeah, the mastery thing.
But they're just not really, that
I think
powerful.
by the you could say like, oh, CRF bots do half damage.
No,
No,
that's not the right way to
that's
address
a
the
joke.
problem.
That's
When Free Jam gave like bonus damage
Ducks.
to like new players or something.
Oh yeah, that was fun.
How did that work? I can't remember. I just
They
I
gave double
completely
damage
forgot
and
about
double
that.
health,
What?
and didn't tell anyone, including their own mods.
Oh my god.
Yeah, but we did learn one lesson from it. We have learned that in theory, but this is still a theory, that players might like winning. Their words. Their exact words. I'm not joking, these are their words. This is a game company that has...
I'm sorry, I can't do this video anymore.
Oh my god. Oh, he's back right away. Hi, Zap.
Sorry, I need
We're
to catch my
sorry.
breath. Sorry.
We're
Sorry.
so sorry. This is just... It's just become a meme. Should we just end the video?
Yes.
Okay, I think this has gone far enough.
a
At least we made
disaster.
some valid points.
You know what else is a disaster?
You hate us all, don't you, Zeph?
I mean, it started out with good intentions, but it's...
Still, I'd say it ended in good intentions. We learned a lot from this. It's a lot to take on board.
You can't do everything
It's not the end of the
perfectly.
world. Certainly not the end of this game.
It's
Still
just...
got a long way to go.
It's just game why you have to be mad.
I'm not mad.
Just disappoint.
I've never gotten mad. when
You
it comes
sure, buddy? I think
Um,
I've seen you rage.
Well, the only reason why is because I pretty much wasted a month of my life trying to get a golden gun, only to have someone be able to forge it, and then me fall asleep during that very update.
Oh
Wait,
yeah, that was funny.
Hold up. What?
Uh,
It was not funny.
Wait,
it was tragic.
whoa. Forge?
Okay, let me explain it. During Reconnect Take 1, there was an issue that, again, for some reason, FreeGem has not added. Okay, let me just make this. If you have weapons and items in a game that you do not want to be purchased, but you know that there might be an issue that all weapons and items that a player needs to be able to equip need a value for purchase and sell. So what do? You A, add a value of 6,000 to an item which should be impossible to ever gather again, or
What
B,
on earth are you talking about?
you add a value, a purchase value of 99 billion, so that no player, even if
Hold
the
up.
game glitches
Are
out,
you
can
telling
buy
me
it.
that you were able to forge the golden gun for 6,000 robots?
During
Yes.
the Reconnect Take 1 update, the golden gun was forgeable. I was not awake at the time to see how
And
much
it was
cost.
6,000
robots?
Probably just
No,
like all.
This
No,
is
no, it
software
wasn't.
gold content right here.
No, I think it was the same price as the normal.
No,
like,
it was the same
SMG.
price as the legendary, 60,000.
But most like
That's still nothing.
Or
most-
no,
the
I
I
don't
have,
know
like,
how much it was
40,000
because I
rupees.
wasn't awake to see it.
He's mad about that.
Okay, I can understand you're mad.
And
but
it bothers me that I wasn't there. Because I was there the whole month. I was there.
Well, hey, it's their fuck up, alright?
I still want multi cubes in this game.
Multi? What now?
Oh god, you know the thing that we're
Oh.
doing.
Oh, is that when you can, like, put multiple cubes in one space or something?
Yeah, but it
Oh,
combines
yeah,
with
yeah.
the CU and LMH system.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I just... can't
Seth,
do this.
Seth.
Zeph, I sympathize for you.
Yeah.
A forgeable golden gun? Fuck off.
Welcome to FreeGem. We don't bug test our game.
Something that only goes to the top 10 players. Forgeable.
You know, it's FreeGem. At this point, it's not even a surprise anymore.
That's like Valve making the golden wrench craftable. It's like...
Like by accident and saying, "Oh, whoops, whoops," or oh yeah, that they suddenly make some of the most valuable hats given to like suddenly everyone can get one, and those that paid 3,000 euros for it, oh yeah, it's now $1 worth.
The golden wrench. Only 100 exist. But you can now craft it for 2 refined.
Oh, but I just traded mine for but so much.
You can't trade golden wrenches.
No,
so.
no.
Which is the same in Free Jam as well, in Rubbercraft. I mean, you can't just trade things in Rubbercraft.
Robo cards. The
Right.
yeah.
Now we're gonna keep making artifact memes.
Yeah. Artifact.
This is actually hurting me because I'm a Dota player.
I don't give a crap. This is so fucking hilarious.
I don't actually give a crap.
Yeah. Do you remember the reaction from all those people in that video?
That was legendary.
That was phenomenal.
It could not. You can't make these things up.
You
can't
cannot
make them
have
up.
more disappointment in one room than that
It's
very day.
just-
Ah. Almost the same as expecting Epic Loot to be a nice, good update.
Imagine if Epic Loot had an official announcement, like in real life, and someone.
And then you just see a trailer and then crates, and then everyone goes like, "God fucking damn it!"
It's just the exact same thing as the. I can just imagine
I think
the Epic Loot announcements.
I think they would probably murder half the people in that room, just like they did on the subreddit, which just turned into a volcano of molten
I didn't
salt.
actually know the subreddit existed at that time. I didn't know any of this existed. I didn't.
Good,
Discord
good.
existed. I didn't know you. I didn't know Zeph.
Good,
So
good. You really didn't want to be there at that time.
I was protected by my ignorance,
You still had your innocence.
innocence.
Saying that to an adult person, you're an innocent person.
I'm not innocent. Don't say
Yeah,
that.
we're not.
You're innocent.
Yeah, I'm a furry. I'm not. I'm the least innocent.
I don't know, man. We'll have to discuss this in private.
You know what we need now?
Hmm?
No Robocraft Sky. Endless planets to explore! Endless robots to encounter!
You're making a Battle Royale joke again?
No, a No Man's Sky joke. But No Man's Sky
Okay.
with Robocraft.
I can see this becoming a thing as well.
Yeah, I can see this becoming a thing as well, and I'm now I'm disgusted
It's possible.
by my own thoughts.
You can entirely do it in Unity. It's entirely
Oh,
possible.
God, boy, please don't make No Robocraft Sky happen.
No
Oh,
robot Sky.
Why did I ever suggest this? Completely randomly generated robot. And you just see the fucking thing in a 6-year-old would make.
What was that? Remember the tank on the stick?
You see that just floating by?
Where's it? I have it somewhere. I need to post it. Where's the matter?
Just see a tank on a stick floating by. These creatures are indigenous to this land. You learned the Robocraftian word for penis.
Alright, mate, calm down.
The amount of No Man's Skies memes. Oh dear God.
Hey, Rocky.
Yeah.
Wait, why
No.
can't I? Oh, for fuck's sake.
I'm disappointed in myself.
Everyone is, don't worry.
I know. You have anything funny to say before I end this shit show of a video?
Yeah, one sec, I'm just grabbing a picture.
Oh no. Oh no.
Our God and Savior.
Oh my God. I'm just gonna save that. And then just for a moment, see
They
if-
hovered like 30 meters above the ground. And Flack didn't work on them.
I'm
It's
just
so funny because like people would be shooting at you with Flack, like why isn't it working? Why isn't it exploding?
let me just change this to this fucking shit. Our God and Savior. I just still don't understand why that was even a fucking thing. The only reason it worked was
Because hovers are the universal constant in this game.
the bringer of chaos.
They can carry infinite mass. They can move worlds.
Well,
In
it's
fact,
the
I'm pretty sure
future.
I'm pretty sure if you could mount a hoverblade to the map,
Well, what if
the
you
map
mounted
would
a
just-
hoverblade on a hoverblade? Would you technically create infinite energy? Because it's mounting infinite. It's lifting.
it would probably have
No,
a
like if you have a
catastrophic-
hoverblade, but then a hoverblade pushing in the other direction, but it's connected to each other.
the exponential creation of energy would probably cause a supernova.
Welcome to Robocraft, everybody.
Never really. No hoverblades, thanks.
Okay, I agree. I'm gonna end it. Vinny,
Yes?
this was wonderful.
This picture is so perfect. Like, just coming out of the light, just descending from the heavens.
Ascending.
The one and only. The one true robot.
The one true meta. The one we it's not the meta we needed.
This is
It's meant
Peak
to be
perfection. You may not like it.
This is the ultimate life form. No robot will succeed as much as a tank on a stick with a hover underneath.
Guys, do you remember this?
Oh no, I'm supposed to show it as well. Oh no, not the 4 CPU robots.
5 CPU, get it right.
Oh, oh yeah, the one that got
Blobcat 29.
Yeah,
Rest in pieces, my friend. Rest in peace.
I'm gonna end it. Well, this was fun.